Discover the incredible journey of 12 days, a heartwarming tale of hard work that changed everything. Jake Thompson stood in his garage that morning, surrounded by the familiar scents of oil and metal. Each hissing tire and revving engine whispered tales of a life lived in service. He was a mechanic in Maplewood, a small Midwestern town where the quaintness of home was the heart of existence. The annual fairs were vibrant, and porch-sitting evenings held stories that stirred the soul. But dark clouds loomed on the horizon, not just figuratively, but literally. The forecast had spoken of rain and flooding that threatened the very fabric of their community. As he turned a wrench, Jake felt the weight of worry pressing down. Business was slow, the economic downturn gnawing at the edges of his family's legacy. Memories of his father's unwavering valor and his mother's tireless work as a waitress echoed through his mind, two beacons illuminating the path of hard work and loyalty. He didn't just want to survive, he wanted to create a life where his family thrived, free from fear and uncertainty. Then came the storm, fierce and relentless, pouring rain as if the skies were crying for Maplewood. The morning after the tempest, with puddles reflecting the gloomy gray above, something stirred within Jake. He swung open the garage doors wide, hoping that kindness would be returned as kindly weather. Neighbors needed help, families needed functioning cars. With every tire he patched and every engine he tuned, he poured hope into each turn of the wrench, feeling an undeniable urge to uplift those around him, but as he helped, he felt the sharp sting of judgment from the wealthier townfolk. They looked at him with disdain, questioning his methods and skills despite the success stories nestled in his hands. Why was his background a barrier that labeled him unworthy to lend aid? The skepticism tugged at his heart, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. In between fixing vehicles, moments came alive. An elderly man tearing up as Jake fixed his broken-down pickup, a mother, grateful as he got her car running again, her kids smiling in the back seat. Hope blossomed there, amid the uncertainty. Yet, just as his spirit began to rise, his brother, a self-proclaimed dreamer chasing the elusive American dream, returned to town. Their strained silence was thick as the floodwaters receded. Jake's life had been about toil and grit, while his brother had danced on hope, radiating success but ultimately lacking meaning. As the town pulled together, Jake felt the pressure build. Would he focus on salvaging his family's garage or step into a larger role, a leader amid the chaos? People rallied behind him, yet doubts gnawed at his spirit. Then came the hardest blow. A tragic reveal about a childhood friend shattered his resolve and sent waves of pain crashing through the community. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jake stood with the floodwaters receding but heartbreak flooding in, he drew a deep breath. The community's struggle mirrored his inner turmoil. Could he be the hero they needed? The path ahead was murky, filled with questions he had yet to answer. And as he faced the delicate fabric of Maplewood, a stirring in his chest ignited a fire, one that would challenge the labels that had shadowed him. Would he rise to meet the town's expectations, or let fear overshadow his worth? The answer awaited, and it would transform Jake and Maplewood more than he'd ever imagined. Jake stood at the threshold of his garage, staring into the distance as the town began to stir. The remnants of the flood lingered, but nature had a way of healing, just like the people of Maplewood. He felt the warmth of the morning sun piercing through the fading clouds, casting a golden light on the wreckage and revealing a path forward. It was time to act, to step up, to turn his grief into something meaningful. The thought consumed him as he picked up a worn rag, wiping his hands clean, ready to greet the day. He decided to host a community gathering at the garage that evening. He envisioned it, families gathering around, sharing stories, exchanging ideas about rebuilding what had been lost. This was more than fixing cars, it was about fixing spirits. As the sun dipped lower, Jake began to set up. He arranged chairs borrowed from the local diner, laid out snacks, and prepared for whatever lay ahead. The rhythmic sound of hammers echoed from nearby houses as neighbors worked together to repair their homes, and a sense of unity began to rise over the horizon. Slowly, familiar faces trickled in his old friends, the mothers whose cars he had fixed, even some of the town's skeptics, begrudgingly curious. Each individual carried their own burdens, yet together they felt lighter. Laughter echoed as they reminisced about good times and shared stories of resilience. Jake felt that familiar warmth in his chest, the kind that comes when people connect over shared struggles. Just as the energy peaked, a hush fell over the crowd as Jake stood to speak. He cleared his throat, nerves gripping his heart. "I know things feel overwhelming. This storm has darkened our paths, but if we come together, we can rebuild not just our town, but our hopes," he declared, his voice rising with passion. "We've all faced challenges, but we all have the power to lift each other up and bring light into the darkest places." A murmur of agreement rolled through the crowd. His brother, standing at the back, crossed his arms defiantly, harboring his beliefs of self-reliance and ambition. But Jake pushed that thought aside, focusing instead on the warmth in the room. A community was formed not just in what one had achieved, but in the connections made during times of trial. As the evening wore on, plans began to take shape, community projects, gathering supplies, and fostering connections with local businesses to improve the town's resilience. They shared laughter and lighter moments too, but the underlying thread was hope. Hope that things could change, that disaster could birth rebirth. In the midst of all the planning, an unexpected figure appeared at the door. Sarah, a girl from high school, stepped inside. She was known for her enchanting voice, and now she had a guitar slung over her shoulder. "Can I perform?" she asked shyly. A ripple of excitement spread through the crowd. Jake nodded, not only excited about the music but this embodiment of spirit. Sarah strummed the guitar, filling the garage with sweet melodies that lured even the most skeptical hearts. As she sang, there were smiles and tears, each note tightening the fabric of their community. The melodies seemed to surge with rejuvenation, unifying them even further. As darkness enveloped the garage, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose wash over him. The night had begun to strengthen the thread connecting the citizens of Maplewood, a stitch threading through their shared pain towards hope. But even as he reveled in this newfound unity, an unsettling thought clawed at his mind: what would happen when the applause faded and reality returned? Would they stand together when things grew tough again, or would old wounds re-emerge? The evening's warmth made him realize how fragile they were yet united, and that discovery hung heavy in his heart. As the last notes lingered in the air, Jake glanced at his brother. Would this be the moment that changed everything for him too? And with the shadows creeping closer as the stars emerged, he wondered would their bond repair or fracture in the face of deeper truths yet unveiled. The next morning, Jake rose to the gentle sounds of Maplewood waking up. The sun filtered through the window, bathing his small kitchen in a warm glow. He brewed coffee, the rich aroma wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. Last night replayed in his mind the voices, the laughter, the music. Hope danced in the air, but just like the morning dew, it felt fragile. The day ahead promised more work. Plans needed refining, and teams had to be settled. People were eager, but anticipation could quickly turn to frustration if chaos reigned. Jake grabbed a notepad and started jotting down the items they'd need for the community projects. Paint, nails, brushes, each word sparked a little fire of excitement in him. As he got ready, Jake's thoughts drifted to his brother, Kyle. The two had grown up together, weathered storms literal and metaphorical, but they were at odds now. Kyle was stubborn, independent to a fault, convinced he could fix things alone. Jake sighed, wishing they could find common ground. He wanted his brother to see that relying on one another wasn't weakness. By mid-morning, the garage buzzed with activity. Groups formed, animated discussions ensued, and a few latecomers trickled in, drawn by the electrifying atmosphere. The room felt alive, lit by the spark of unity and shared purpose. Jake moved to the center, collecting thoughts to address the crowd. He hoped his insight might bridge the gap between himself and Kyle. "Alright, everyone. We've got a lot of work to do and a short time to plan it. Let's make sure everyone knows their roles," Jake started, scanning the eager faces before him. He pointed to clusters of friends and families, assigning them tasks. The excitement grew, he could see it in their gleaming eyes, yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that Kyle was still hesitant, lingering in the background, arms tight across his chest. Jake selected a moment to pull his brother aside. "Hey, Kyle. I saw you standing back there. You okay?" "Yeah, just not sure how much talking is necessary." "We need to get moving," Kyle replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. The conversation felt fragile, a web of disconnection threatening to snap. "I hear you. But we're stronger together. What if we team up on something?" "You choose the task," Jake offered, wishing to coax his brother's competitive spirit rather than let stubbornness win. Kyle studied him for a moment. There was a flicker of interest, perhaps even curiosity. "Fine. Let's tackle the park. It needs a lot of work." Jake's heart lifted. This was a wise choice. "Great. How about we organize a cleanup, followed by some landscaping? We can bring everyone on board. Make it a community event." Kyle nodded, arms beginning to uncross slightly, the tension easing just a notch. It was a small victory, but Jake cherished it. As they mapped out their day, laughter and shared jokes floated around them like a warm breeze. They filled brown bags with sandwiches and drinks for the long hours ahead, each morsel a promise of rejuvenation alongside the physical labor. The sense of camaraderie deepened, carrying the weight of shared burdens but also the joy of renewal. When noon approached, Jake looked around the bustling garage. It felt different, like a microcosm of hope. But in the back of his mind, a question loomed: what would it take to overcome the emotional barriers separating not just him and his brother, but the rest of the town too? Just then, his phone buzzed, pulling him from his reverie. A message from Sarah lit up the screen: "I'd love to bring my friends tomorrow. Music might help lift spirits even more." Jake smiled but felt a pang of worry. Would that stir old tensions? With uncertainty swirling in his chest, he debated his response. Could one night of music keep the ignite burning, or were some fissures too deep, too raw? As the sun climbed higher, a new energy unfurled around them. Together, they started to gather supplies, picking up where they left off the night before. But Jake didn't realize the storm brewing on the horizon. Would the community truly hold? Or would the cracks start to reappear just as they made progress? As laughter filled the air, a quiet anticipation settled in, waiting for the truth to reveal itself. The morning sunlight poured generously through the garage windows, creating an inviting blend of warmth and determination. Jake stood in the midst of it all, clipboard in hand, glancing from one group to another. Energy buzzed, yet he felt the tightness in his chest return, a minor chaos whispering fears in his ears. It was exhilarating to see people rally together, but the uncertainty of Kyle's willingness to fully engage kept him on edge. "Let's get to work," he called out. Groups dispersed to gather supplies, laughter mingling with shouts for tools. Just as the atmosphere lifted, Jake caught sight of Kyle, lingering near the toolshed, a shadow against the bright excitement of the garage. He was sifting through equipment but didn't seem to connect with anyone else. Jake's heart sank. He needed Kyle to join in. He approached, trying to maintain a casual tone. "Hey, think we could use that wheelbarrow over there? It'd help with the heavy lifting." Kyle glanced up, hesitating before nodding silently and moving towards the wheelbarrow. Jake could sense the battle inside him, the urge to keep going alone clashing with the pull of brotherhood. Grabbing the wheelbarrow, they began the trek toward the park, the silence between them almost palpable. As they arrived, the park loomed before them, a mixture of overgrown grass and discarded remnants of past picnics. The sight tugged at Jake's heart, reflecting a community that needed love. "This place has so much potential," he said, trying to break the tension. "Just imagine how beautiful it could be." "Yeah, if everyone actually helps," Kyle muttered, his voice laced with skepticism. Jake stopped, taking a breath. What if we just took a moment? Let's set some goals before diving in. He leaned against the wheelbarrow and caught Kyle's guarded gaze. He could see cracks forming in his brother's exterior, the stubborn facade weakening. Okay, Kyle finally said, a hint of curiosity breaking his defensive shell. Like what? Like, how about we start with trash pickup? Get an idea of what needs attention first. Then we can plan the landscaping. Jake felt a flicker of hope as they began to walk the park's perimeter, scanning for litter. As the brothers picked through debris, a few neighbors arrived, drawn by the subtle call of community spirit. Soon, a small group gathered, eager to pitch in. The laughter felt genuine, no longer forced. Kyle's eyes began to soften as they exchanged knowing smiles about the project ahead. Hours melted into an organic rhythm, each person slipping into their role. Children joked as they transported bags, while adults engaged in light banter, sharing stories of what the park meant to them. It felt alive, vibrant, as if the very ground they were standing on remembered the echoes of happiness once shared. Jake looked over at Kyle, who had softly surrendered the wall he'd built around himself. Their shoulders brushed now, a silent connection kindling between them. It was in moments like these that Jake caught glimpses of his brother's old self, the one who once threw rocks at the moon in childhood. As they took a break, the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting golden rays over the park like liquid sunlight. You're doing good, Jake said quietly to Kyle, grateful for the change in attitude. Kyle didn't reply at first but then met his gaze, a flicker of acknowledgement sparking between them. Just then, a distant sound of upbeat music began to waft through the air. One of the neighbors had set up speakers, filling the atmosphere with a familiar tune. It was celebratory, uplifting. Jake felt the smile spread on his face instinctively. But as the music echoed, a flicker of concern returned. What did it mean for the night ahead? Would this music bring everyone closer together, or would it awaken the old tensions lurking beneath the surface? The laughter and clinking of tools created a backdrop to his thoughts, but in the crisp evening air, Jake felt the weight of uncertainty. Could they navigate the complexities of their past? Could Kyle drop the walls he held up so tightly? As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jake knew that tonight held the key to more than just their community project. It might determine the way they rebuilt their fractured bond. A gust of wind rustled the leaves, a whisper carrying promises on the breeze. Jake's heart beat harder in his chest. Could this really be the night when everything changed? The music swelled into the warm evening air, a melody that danced around the park. Jake felt the beat sink into his bones, filling the space with a sense of joy that was almost infectious. He watched as people began to move more freely, laughter intertwining with the notes that floated from the speakers. For a fleeting moment, the anxiety within him eased, nudged away by the gentle embrace of community. Kyle, initially stiff and reserved, began to sway slightly. Jake caught him smiling, a small but genuine curve of his lips. It was a breakthrough that lit Jake's hope, but doubt still lingered. Would this newfound energy translate into bonding or chaos? Hey! A voice shouted from the crowd. Sarah, a neighbor with a penchant for cheerful spontaneity, was waving them over. Come join us. We're starting a dance-off. Jake exchanged a quick glance with Kyle, who looked less than thrilled at the idea. I can't dance, Kyle muttered, his smile fading almost as quickly as it appeared. You don't have to be a dancer, just have fun. Jake nudged him, feeling a hesitation in his brother that echoed his earlier reluctance to engage. Kyle crossed his arms, biting his lip, a sign of his inner wrestling match. Just as Jake was about to push a little harder, he noticed other people drifting toward the makeshift dance floor, young kids, older adults, all losing themselves to the rhythms. "See on, Kyle." Jake took a step back, extending his hand. "Just one dance. For old time's sake." Kyle looked at him, and for a brief moment, Jake saw sparks of their childhood, a time when innocence ruled over awkwardness. Kyle hesitated again but then shrugged, moving forward slowly, with a playful glance, Jake pulled him into the throng. The energy pulsated around them, a beautiful blend of joy and acceptance. Jake felt the weight of the last few years lift, replaced by a lightness that sprang from laughter and shared experiences. They found themselves in a circle, joining in the fun, clapping, and cheering. As the music shifted to a more upbeat track, Kyle surprised Jake. He jumped in with a goofy move that drew laughter, not just from Jake but everyone around them. That laugh, that instant connection lay a sliver of hope that things might just be alright. See? Not so bad. Jake beamed, the warmth of that moment infusing his spirit. Kyle smirked, perhaps realizing how much he'd missed feeling part of something bigger than himself. Just as Jake felt the momentum building, a shrill sound cut through a voice above the din. "Hey! What is going on here?" It was their father. A surge of apprehension swept through Jake. He could sense the storm brewing. The crowd quieted, eyes shifting toward the source of the reprimand. Jake instinctively turned to Kyle, but he had already withdrawn, his smile fading as weariness crept back in. Jake's heart sank. Did one moment of joy fade just like that? "Dad," where Jake started, but his father waved a hand, eyes scanning the scene. "What is this? A party? Shouldn't you be focused on work?" The tension distorted the cheerful atmosphere. The music stuttered, an awkward silence roamed for a moment, leaving Jake feeling exposed and frustrated. "Dad, we're just what?" His father interrupted. The disappointment in his voice felt heavy, a brand placed on Jake's chest. All Jake wanted was for the night to carry on as it had begun. The joy, the light, it was all there. But now, it felt like a fragile promise threatened to crumble. As the first stars twinkled into view, a battle raged inside Jake. Could he step up and bridge the gap? Could he defend the happiness they had found, or would deep-rooted expectations suffocate the moment? As the tension hung thick in the air, Jake took a breath, ready to confront the storm brewing in front of him, but would they be able to navigate through it together, or would they slip back into old patterns, losing the bond they had barely begun to repair? Jake felt the weight of his father's words like a heavy raincloud ready to burst. He looked at Kyle, who had retreated into himself, arms crossed tightly against his chest. Jake's heart raced. He knew he had to do something, but the words tumbled around in his mind, jumbled and frantic. The laughter from moments ago felt distant, almost like a dream that had just shattered under the harsh glare of reality. "Dad, it's not a party, it's just some fun," Jake defended, his voice only barely masking the desperation that threatened to slip out. His father crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "Fun? You should be focused on your responsibilities. You have a job to do." A hot flash of indignation surged through Jake. This was why the walls around him felt so thick. Why did every moment of joy have to be overshadowed by his father's expectations? The music had stopped, hanging like a ghost, and people began shifting uncomfortably, sensing the tension that now consumed the once vibrant air. "Dad, it's just a little time together," Jake said, anger and hurt merging in his throat. "Can't we just have this?" Then he noticed the expressions of others' curiosity, sympathy, maybe even disappointment. His heart sank deeper. This wasn't just about him anymore, this was about Kyle, too. "Look," Jake continued, trying to soften the tension. "We've been through so much. Just this once, can I what?" His father's voice rose, thunderous. "Can I overlook your responsibilities for the sake of a few minutes of frivolity? You two need to get your priorities straight." Kyle flinched, the words cutting deeper than the both of them could feel. In an instant, Jake understood. He turned to Kyle with concern. Kyle's face had gone pale, his earlier spark snuffed out in an instant. The brother who had just danced like a kid again, now looked ready to retreat back into the shadows. "Dad," Jake pressed on, voice tinged with urgency, "this is more than just fun. Can't you see Kyle is trying?" Those eyes, typically so fierce, softened slightly as they landed on Kyle, who was staring down at his shoes. For a flicker of time, the chaos fell silent. Then Jake braced himself. Maybe this moment was what they needed to push through the storms together. With every ounce of courage surging forth, Jake stepped fully into the line of fire. We're both tired of feeling like we're not good enough. Just stop for a second, okay? Look around you. People are trying to have fun. Trying to connect. His father's gaze flickered across the crowd, and Jake could see the doubt in his eyes. The reservations that held him back for so long. This wasn't just a moment for them, it was a plea for connection that echoed against the barriers built over years. Slowly, Jake felt the thrum of hope weaving back into the atmosphere, the energy uncoiling in response to his words. A younger neighbor called out, "Come on. Let them enjoy the moment." Others joined in, murmurs of affirmation rising. Jake turned his focus back to Kyle, who still seemed trapped, but there was a slight nod in his direction. A reminder that this fight was theirs to share. "Please, Dad," Jake urged, his voice quieter now, but filled with earnestness. "Can't we find a way to enjoy this together?" As the silence stretched, Jake felt a fragile thread of hope. Would this be the moment that sparked change? Would their father let go, even just a little, and embrace the joy that had almost slipped away? In that suspended breath, before the answer came, Jake held tightly to the threads of possibility. But as their father opened his mouth, Jake's heart raced. What would come next? Would they break through or fall back? The real challenge was just beginning. The air crackled with tension, and Jake held his breath as his father opened his mouth to speak. Time seemed to slow, the world around them fading into an unimportant blur. The laughter and chatter of the party lingered like a distant echo, an alternate reality that felt just out of reach. "Maybe, just this once," their father finally said, his voice low and uncertain. Jake's heart lifted, but the moment was fleeting. He glanced at Kyle, whose expression was still clouded in doubt. There was a lingering ache in Jake's throat, an uneasy dance between hope and skepticism. "Really?" Kyle whispered, eyes wide, as if he couldn't quite process what was happening. "Yeah, really," Jake said. He could see the shadow of a smile creeping onto Kyle's lips. It was like watching a flower bloom after a long cold winter. "Let's just have this moment together." Their father's face shifted, lines of uncertainty replaced with something more complicated, like he was wrestling with his conscience. The crowd that had started to gather now leaned into the moment, urging him on. "See on, man. Let the boys have this. They've earned it." The neighbor's voice rang out, bolstering the fragile hope between Jake and Kyle. It was almost electric, a sensation that charged the air. "All right," their father said, this time with a hint of resolve. "Just an hour. No more." A cheer erupted from the gathered crowd. Jake and Kyle exchanged a glance, a shared understanding passing between them, a whisper of relief, and something deeper, binding them as brothers. As music began to play again, the previous warmth returned, washing over them like sunshine after a storm. Jake pulled Kyle into a huddle, their shoulders bumping. "See? We can do this together." "Yeah, we can," Kyle exclaimed, his spirits lifting like a kite freed from its tether. They rejoined the thrumming heart of the party, immersing themselves in the rhythm. Laughter rang out once more, and the feeling was intoxicating. Jake took Kyle's hand, pulling him toward the dance floor. Together, they let go of the tension for moments before, each beat carrying them further away from the weight of expectations and into the lively pulse of togetherness. Everything felt right, if only for a fleeting moment, as they danced with abandon. But just when Jake thought they had emerged from the haze of past expectations, he noticed their father watching from the sidelines, an unexpected frown still etched across his face. "What's wrong, Dad?" Jake's voice cut through the music, concern threading through his tone. His father sighed, a flicker of something, fear, perhaps, crossing his features. "Nothing, just thinking," he replied. But the way he said it sent a chill down Jake's spine. Had they truly broken through the walls, or was this a temporary reprieve? With each beat, a knot formed in Jake's stomach. He wanted to believe their father could change, that acceptance and connection lay ahead, but fear clawed at him. Kyle caught Jake's eye, and for a split second, words failed them both. Their father remained a puzzle, a flickering light in the distance that they had yet to fully reach. As the night wore on, Jake felt the highs and lows of every fleeting moment, each one teetering between hope and uncertainty. What lay ahead? Would understanding arrive like a long-awaited dawn, or would shadows cloud it again? They danced harder, laughter chasing away the doubt even as it loomed nearby, but as the music faded, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the night held more than just joy. Something was coming, a revelation waiting to unravel. What would that bring? Would it solidify their bond, or pull them back into the lingering shadows of the past? The music faded into a softer melody, the festive atmosphere shifting as the laughter faded into murmurs. Jake could feel the weight of their father's gaze still lingering on them. It was heavy, charged with confusion and something unspoken that hung in the air like thick fog. Each pulse of the music felt like a countdown, and with every beat, Jake's heartbeat echoed his growing anxiety. "Let's get some air," he suggested to Kyle, eager to escape the electric tension that surrounded them. Kyle nodded, still riding the wave of exhilaration from their father's unexpected allowance, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. They slipped outside, the cool night wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. The stars twinkled above, the moon casting soft shadows as they walked away from the noise of the party. "Can you believe Dad said yes?" Kyle asked, a grin plastered across his face. "This is the best night ever." "Yeah, it is," Jake responded, not quite matching his brother's enthusiasm. He loved Kyle's happiness, but his mind kept drifting back to their father. "But I don't know. It feels like he is still not really here with us. I can't shake the feeling that something's off." Kyle paused, his smile fading slightly. "You think he'll change? Like really change?" "I don't know." Jake breathed out, watching his breath fog in the chilly air. "I want to believe it. But it's not that easy, is it? Old habits die hard." They walked in silence for a moment, the sounds of the party muted but still perceptible. Jake wondered how they could break through the barriers their father had built over the years. Could just one night change everything? Could it be enough? They haven't talked about Mom in a while, Kyle finally said, his voice softer now. "You think that's why?" Jake felt a lump in his throat. Their mother's absence had sparked the divide in their family, a wound that never healed properly. It had shaped their father into a man who seemed unsure of how to embrace his boys. "Yeah, I think it is. He probably feels lost without her." "What if we talked to him? Like really talked?" Kyle proposed, his eyes lighting up. "Maybe if we just tell him how we feel it could help." Jake looked at Kyle, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and worry. His little brother had an innocent bravery about him, it was something Jake admired deeply. "I want to, but it's so complicated, Kyle. What if he just shuts down? What if we push him away even more?" "Then we keep trying," Kyle insisted, his voice steady. "He can't stay this way forever, right?" Jake wanted to cling to those words. A flicker of hope surged within him. "Maybe you're right. Maybe we can start by talking to him tonight. Let's do it." After one last dance, Kyle said, bouncing on his toes. "Come on." With their spirits lifted once more, they headed back inside. The energy surged around them, reminding Jake of his determination. He locked eyes with their father, who stood not far from the dance floor, the frown returning to his features as if he felt their gaze. Each beat of the music pulsed with a daring hope, a resolve to face whatever came next. Tonight could be a turning point for their family. The weight of generations hung in the air, balanced on a thin thread of potential. As they stepped into the crowd, Jake felt the weight of their father's stare shift into something softer, more vulnerable. But was it too late? Would he reach out, or would he pull away again? Tomorrow could bring their deepest fears or their greatest triumphs. And Jake knew they had to seize the moment before the night slipped away. But as they edged closer, a voice broke through the crowd, slicing through the exhilaration like a cold blade. "Jake, Kyle. We need to talk." The urgency in their father's voice sent a shiver down Jake's spine. Was this the moment they had been waiting for? Or was it something altogether different? Jake's heart raced as he exchanged a glance with Kyle. The excitement from earlier vanished, replaced by a pulsating dread. They had envisioned a breakthrough, but now they stood at the precipice of uncertainty. "Uh-oh," Kyle whispered, shuffling his feet as their father beckoned them urgently. "What do you think he wants?" "I don't know," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "But let us hear him out." Their father, Mark, stood away from the crowd, almost swallowed by the dimness of the hallway. Under the glow of a flickering light, his face revealed a mix of worry and determination. He took a deep breath, his hands clenching and unclenching as if he were afraid of what to say next. "Boys," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "I'm glad I caught you. We need to talk about everything." The weight of those words hung heavily between them. Jake felt a familiar ache of longing mixed with trepidation. Would this conversation finally crack the shell of silence that had dominated their family for so long? "What do you mean?" Kyle asked, his teenage confidence battling the chill creeping into his bones. Well, Mark shifted uncomfortably. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about your mother. About us. About how I haven't really been present." Jake's throat tightened. It was a start. But thoughts swirled in his mind. What could he say that would push their father beyond the barriers he had built? "I think we should talk about her," Jake interjected, finding his voice. "About how all of this affects us. I mean, you and I, we just want to understand, Dad." Mark's expression softened, the tense lines on his forehead easing, but doubt still lingered in his eyes. "It's just I don't want to hurt you more. Talking about her brings up so much pain, but I see you both trying to reach out for me. I want to be better. Then let us try, as a family," Kyle said, his youthful sincerity shining through. "We can't just pretend everything is okay. We need to talk. About everything." For a moment, silence fell. The hammering sounds of the party faded. Jake could see tears welling in their father's eyes. The vulnerability was raw and real, and Jake felt a knot in his chest begin to unravel. "I've been so scared to lose any more," Mark admitted, his voice cracking. "It seems easier to numb the pain and push through, but I see now it's tearing us apart. You deserve better." Jake felt his own eyes moisten. Could this truly be the turning point? The moment that would allow them to heal instead of merely surviving? "Then let us start tonight," Kyle urged. "Let us talk about Mom, about how we feel, everything. We can face this together just like a family should." Jake watched as a tremor moved through their father. Maybe the hope that had flickered inside him wasn't so far-fetched after all. "Okay," Mark said firmly, nodding as he took a step closer. "Let us do it." But just as hope began to bloom, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the party. Music sputtered, and chaos erupted like popcorn popping in a pan. Mark's eyes shifted anxiously, the moment faltering. "What was that?" Jake asked, a creeping dread curling in his stomach. "I don't know," Mark said, glancing back toward the crowd. "But we need to check it out. It might be important." The veil of uncertainty had shifted once more, and Jake felt a tightening grip of panic. What if this was another distraction? What if this derailed their chance for healing? As they hurried toward the sounds of commotion, a sense of foreboding hung thick in the air. Questions swirled: would they lose another opportunity? Would they have to deal with something much bigger than their family issues? And in that moment, Jake knew they had no choice but to forge ahead. Whatever awaited them, they would face it together, but would they become more fractured along the way? Jake burst into the garage, heavy footsteps echoing against the metal walls. His heart raced, sensing the chaos ahead. The party had once thrummed with joy but now crackled with tension. Shadows loomed. The upbeat music had cut off abruptly. As they stepped into the bright garage lights, the sight before them was a tangled mess: chairs overturned, a table collapsed, and wide-eyed neighbors exchanging anxious glances. "What happened?" Jake shouted over the murmur, eyes darting around, searching. A gust of dread brushed against the nape of his neck. "It's the food setup," a neighbor called out. "The table fell over. Everything's spilled. We were trying to pick it up." Jake's relief was palpable. They hadn't lost anything monumental. But as he met Kyle's gaze, he saw the same question in his brother's eyes: was this a moment of minor chaos or an underlying sign of deeper fractures? Mark rushed forward, already bending down to help, lifting mess from the floor with purpose. "Let me help," he said, scrabbling to fix the disorder. The tension seemed to dissolve slightly, like steam escaping from a kettle. Together, they all formed a human chain, working together in fits of laughter as they cleared the mess. "See? Nothing can keep us down," Kyle called, a grin on his face as he tossed a wayward napkin towards Jake. Staying engaged felt vital. Jake picked up a piece of cake, half on the ground and half unscathed. "How about we toss this one out for the brave souls in the first aid, huh?" He joked, and miraculously, laughter returned in waves. As the situation resolved, Mark turned to Jake, his eyes softened. "I'm sorry, son. That was kind of chaotic and not exactly how I wanted this night to go." Jake paused. The moment felt like a door creaking open. "It's all right, Dad, it's just a minor setback. We wanted to talk, remember?" But Kyle cut in, "Yeah, before we lost our chance with the cake, right? We were thinking of some serious family time. About Mom." The room still churned with energy, but echoes of laughter had shifted into nervous anticipation. Their father seemed to stiffen, the weight of their past settling heavily in the silence that followed. Mark rubbed the back of his neck, the lines on his forehead creasing deeply. "I know I've shied away from that," he said, voice now quieter. "But I want to be part of this family. I need to do better." Jake held his breath. This was the moment he'd been hoping for. "It's totally okay to feel off about things, Dad. We just want to hear from you. To move forward together." "Yeah," Kyle chimed in. "Being scared doesn't stop hurt, but we've got each other. We're stronger together." Mark's eyes flickered with emotions: fear, vulnerability, and a glimmer of understanding. His father cleared his throat, a resolve settling in his features. Maybe tonight could be the start. And just as hope began to saturate the atmosphere, a young neighbor shouted, "How about we all share something about her? A memory, a favorite moment." Voices rose, a wave of collective emotions flowing as neighbors shared their cherished memories of Jake and Kyle's mother. Each story wove threads through the room, creating a tapestry rich with love, strength, and laughter. As each shared moment illuminated pieces of her spirit, Jake felt the ache in his heart softening. They were talking and their father was listening, leaning in, allowing himself to be part of a healing they desperately needed. Each smile that stretched on Mark's face shifted the air, lightening the burdens they had all carried. Kyle turned to Jake, his eyes gleaming with hope. "This feels good." "Really good," Kyle said softly, sensing the shift. In that instant, the tension dissipated, replaced by understanding and warmth. As they turned to their father, Mark's voice faltered, "I remember how she used to sit with you guys, telling stories under the stars." "Yes. The camping trip when we all got lost." Jake chimed in, laughter erupting at the memory. "Or the time she insisted on making that extravagant birthday cake," Kyle added, a grin breaking his face. Bit by bit, they rebuilt their laughter, fueling new hope, allowing cherished memories to seep into the empty spaces left by grief and loss. As the evening wore on, they found rhythm in each story shared. Jake felt his bond with his father start to solidify piece by piece, their connection resurrected. Hours melted away, and finally, the crowd thinned, leaving Jake, Kyle, and Mark sitting together under the glowing lights of the garage. I think we've taken a pretty big step. It's not just about dealing with Mom. It's about us, Mark said, almost nervously. Jake nodded, feeling a deep surge of trust. We always said we're a family, but we need to know each other as stories. We need to grow, not just get by. Let us commit to this. Mark's eyes shimmered, shaking off some heaviness. Okay. I'm in. I want to keep this alive. As the warmth wrapped around them like a cozy blanket, a newfound realization settled in. They were not merely surviving, they were learning to flourish, embracing the vulnerability of true connection. It was a beautiful beginning, a promise of healing woven into the fabric of their lives. Jake leaned back, a radiant smile lighting up his face. Together, we can build a better tomorrow. And they were ready. As laughter and light poured from the garage, Jake realized it was the dawn of a new reality, one where love flourished again. In that moment, he understood that facing his family's past was the only way to usher in a future that truly belonged to them. Now was the time for connection, to rise as one, a true family. Jake thought to himself, this is how you create change, this is how you heal. Be the reason they promised each other, and as the night darkened and the stars flickered like hope overhead, they knew they would never be alone again. If you felt the powerful waves of this family transformation, make sure to hit that subscribe button immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to help fuel the journey, it truly matters. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this heartfelt ending, your voices are important to us. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this incredible transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support. Your engagement helps us keep these stories alive and thriving.